My wife weaponized fake feminist 50-50 equality. I exposed her secret divorce plot, revealed hidden cash, and forced her to face real accountability. So modern and progressive. My wife loved throwing it around like confetti at a wedding. We should split everything, 50-50, she'd say with that self-righteous smile. Equal partnership, equal responsibility. Well, let me tell you what 50-50 actually looked like in my house. It started about 2 years into our marriage, when she got this brilliant idea from one of those feminist podcasts she was obsessed with. Suddenly, everything needed to be equal. The mortgage? Split it. Groceries? Split them. Utilities? You guessed it. And foolishly, I thought this was actually a good idea. Finally, a modern approach to marriage, where both partners contribute equally. What a joke that turned out to be. Here's how our equal system worked in practice. I paid exactly half of everything she demanded. We split the mortgage, utilities, groceries, car payments, insurance, you name it. I covered my 50% like clockwork. But here's the kicker. Somehow, I was also the one paying for all the unexpected expenses that conveniently never made it onto her equality list. When the washing machine broke down, guess who fixed it? When we needed a new roof, guess whose credit card got maxed out? When her car needed repairs. Apparently, that didn't fall under our 50-50 agreement because it was her personal responsibility. But when my car needed work, suddenly it became our household expense that we should split. The housework was even more ridiculous. We made a chore chart like we were college roommates. She took the easy tasks, loading the dishwasher, wiping counters, organizing closets. I got stuck with mowing the lawn, taking out the trash, fixing everything that broke, cleaning bathrooms, and somehow still doing half of her assigned tasks because she was too busy or too tired. But the real eye-opener came 3 months ago when I started actually tracking everything. Call it curiosity, call it suspicion, but something felt off about our so-called equal partnership. I discovered she was making about $15,000 more than me at her job. Not a huge difference, but definitely more. Yet somehow I was covering significantly more expenses. While she dutifully transferred her half of the agreed-upon bills, she was spending the rest of her money on clothes, spa treatments, girls' trips, and premium gym memberships. Meanwhile, I was using my leftover money to cover home repairs, emergency expenses, and pretty much anything that wasn't specifically written on our precious 50-50 list. The breaking point came on a Wednesday evening. She waltzed in with shopping bags from 3 different stores, bragging about the amazing deals she found on designer boots and a new purse. Then, not even an hour later, she handed me the electric bill with a sticky note. Your half, $127. I looked at this woman, standing there in her $400 boots, asking me to split a utility bill, while I had just spent $600 the previous weekend fixing our leaking bathroom pipes, a cost she conveniently forgot to offer to split. That's when I realized something that should have been obvious from the beginning. She didn't want equality. She wanted all the benefits of a traditional marriage, having someone else handle the hard stuff, fix problems, and cover unexpected costs, while also getting the financial independence of a modern arrangement where she kept most of her own money. She wanted to have her cake and eat it too. And like an idiot, I'd been providing both the cake and the fork. But what really got me wasn't the money. It was the attitude. The way she'd lecture me about fairness while gaming the system in her favor, the way she'd make me feel guilty for questioning expenses while she hoarded her income, the way she turned our marriage into a business transaction where she held all the advantageous contracts. I started documenting everything, every expense, every contribution, every convenient excuse. The numbers told a story that would have made a forensic accountant laugh. In our equal partnership, I was contributing about 75% of our actual household costs, while she contributed 25% and acted like she was carrying the world on her shoulders. That night, as she modeled her new boots and complained about how expensive everything was getting, I made a decision. If she wanted to play the equality game, fine. But we were going to play by the actual rules this time. Time to show her what 50-50 really looked like when both people actually had to follow it. I waited until Saturday morning to bring it up. She was sitting at the kitchen counter, scrolling through her phone and sipping coffee from her expensive organic blend that naturally wasn't part of our grocery budget split because it was her personal preference. We need to talk about our finances, I said, setting down a folder with all my documentation. She didn't even look up from her phone. What about them? Everything's fine, isn't it? I opened the folder and spread out 3 months' worth of expense tracking. Because according to my calculations, Our 50-50 system is running about 75 to 25 in my favor. Now I had her attention. She glanced at the papers with the kind of dismissive look you'd give a telemarketer. I don't know what you're talking about. We split everything equally. We split the bills you choose to split equally, I corrected. But somehow, home repairs, emergency expenses, and maintenance don't make it onto your equality radar. She set down her coffee cup with more force than necessary. Those are different. Those are unexpected. Unexpected for 3 years straight? I laughed. That's either the worst luck in history or selective math. Her face was already shifting into what I'd learned to recognize as manipulation mode. The slight quiver in her voice, the wounded expression, the way she positioned herself as the victim. I can't believe you're keeping track of money like this, she said, her voice taking on that hurt tone. That's so controlling and petty. Married couples don't nickel and dime each other. You're right, I said. Married couples don't. But business partners do. And since you insisted we operate like business partners with your 50-50 demands, I figured I'd treat it like a business. The wounded act dropped immediately. Now came anger. You're being ridiculous. I contribute plenty to this household. Define plenty, I said, pointing to the numbers. Because plenty looks like about 30% of actual expenses while taking credit for 50. She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. You know what? I work just as hard as you do. I'm not going to sit here and be lectured about money by someone who obviously doesn't appreciate what I bring to this marriage. What you bring? I couldn't help but smirk. You mean like last month when you brought home a $600 purse while I was bringing home a plumber's bill for the kitchen sink you broke? That sink was old. It would have broken anyway. Right. And the bathroom pipes were old too, and the garage door, and the air conditioning unit. Amazing how everything in this house is old when it needs my money to fix it, but everything is ours when it's working properly. She was getting flustered now, and I could see her cycling through her usual tactics. First came the personal attacks. You've changed, she said. You used to be generous and caring. Now you're acting like some kind of cheapskate who counts every penny. I'm acting like someone who got tired of being taken advantage of, I replied. But please continue. Tell me more about how caring I used to be when I was quietly subsidizing your lifestyle. Next came the threats, right on schedule. You know what? Maybe we need to reevaluate this whole marriage if you're going to be this petty about money. Maybe we're not compatible anymore. There it was. The nuclear option. Threatened divorce whenever she didn't get her way. Usually this was where I'd back down, apologize, and go back to being her personal ATM. Not today. You know what? I said, closing the folder. You might be right about that. Her confident expression faltered. She clearly wasn't expecting me to agree. What's that supposed to mean? It means maybe we should evaluate whether this marriage is working. Because from where I'm sitting, I've got a roommate who pays partial rent and expects me to be her personal maintenance service. She tried to recover quickly. That's not what I meant. I don't want to get divorced. I just think you need to stop being so focused on money. I'm not focused on money, I said. I'm focused on fairness. You know, that thing you claimed to want when you demanded we split everything 50-50. This is different. How? She struggled for words. Because marriage isn't about keeping score. I had to laugh at that one. Marriage isn't about keeping score? Then why do you have a calculator app permanently open on your phone to split every restaurant check down to the penny? She didn't have an answer for that. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. Since you want 50-50 so badly, we're going to do real 50-50. Everything, every expense, every responsibility, every inconvenience. We already do that. No, we do your version of that. Starting Monday, we're doing my version. True equality, you'll love it. Something in my tone must have warned her this wasn't going to go her way because she immediately switched back to damage control. Look, maybe I haven't been completely fair about some things. We can work this out. We don't need to be extreme about it. Too late. I was done being reasonable with someone who'd been unreasonable for 3 years. Oh, we're going to work it out, all right, don't worry. You're going to get exactly what you asked for. And as I walked away, leaving her standing in the kitchen with her expensive coffee and her mounting concern, I was already planning exactly how to give her the equality she claimed to want. She had no idea what she had just signed up for. Monday morning came with a revelation I wasn't expecting. I'd gotten up early to start implementing my new true equality plan when I noticed her laptop was still open on the kitchen table. The screen had gone to sleep, but when I bumped the mouse to check the time, something caught my eye. Her banking app was still logged in. Now, I'm not the type to snoop through my wife's finances. We'd always maintained separate accounts alongside our joint one, and I respected that privacy. But the numbers glaring at me from the screen made my coffee turn cold in my mouth. Her checking account balance, $23,847. Her savings account balance, $31,692. I sat down hard in the chair. This woman who split grocery bills to the penny and complained about how tight money was getting had over $55,000 sitting in accounts I didn't even know existed. This was the same woman who had told me last month she couldn't afford to split the cost of new tires for her car because she was barely scraping by. The same woman who had made me feel guilty for questioning her contributions to household expenses. I heard the shower turn on upstairs and knew I had maybe 10 minutes before she came down. My fingers moved across the keyboard, opening transaction histories, and what I found made my blood boil. For the past year, while I'd been covering emergency repairs, maintenance, and unexpected expenses because she claimed she couldn't afford her share, she'd been systematically transferring money from her checking account to savings, $300 here, $500 there, sometimes $1,000 at a time. She'd been deliberately keeping her checking account low to maintain the illusion that she was struggling financially while building a secret nest egg with money that should have been going toward our shared expenses. That wasn't even the worst part. I scrolled through her recent transactions and found monthly payments of $250 for the past 6 months to something called Women's Legal Advocacy Group. A quick internet search made my stomach drop. It was a law firm specializing in divorce cases. Specifically, divorce cases focused on maximizing female financial outcomes in marital dissolution. My wife had been planning our divorce for 6 months, while playing the struggling partner who couldn't afford to split major expenses. I heard the shower stop. Quickly, I closed the laptop and moved to the coffee maker, my mind racing. When she came downstairs 15 minutes later, dressed for work and acting like nothing had happened, I had to bite my tongue to keep from confronting her immediately. "Good morning," she said, grabbing her keys and purse. "I thought about what you said yesterday, and you're right. We should be more fair about expenses." The irony was almost too much to handle. "Really?" "Yes. I think I've been a little inconsistent about some things. Maybe we can sit down this weekend and figure out a better system." A better system. While she was secretly consulting divorce lawyers and hoarding money. "That sounds great," I managed to say. "I'm sure we can work something out." She kissed my cheek and headed for the door. "I love you. We'll figure this out." "I love you." From someone who'd been planning to divorce me for half a year. After she left, I did something I'd never done before. I called in sick to work and spent the day doing research. If she wanted to play games, I needed to understand the rules. A quick call to my buddy who worked in banking confirmed what I suspected. Those regular transfers to savings, combined with keeping her checking account artificially low, were classic moves for someone preparing for divorce. It allowed her to claim financial hardship while actually building a war chest. The legal firm's website was enlightening too. They specialized in cases where wives could claim they'd been financially disadvantaged during the marriage even when they'd been earning equal or higher incomes. Their strategy seemed to involve documenting male partners as controlling or financially abusive, even in cases where those men had been carrying more than their fair share of expenses. I spent the afternoon documenting everything I'd found, taking screenshots, noting dates and amounts. If this was going to be a game of evidence, I was going to play to win. But the real revelation came when I found something else in her laptop history. A group chat called Freedom Planning with 3 of her closest friends. The message previews I could see without even opening it made everything crystal clear. Stick to the plan. Keep documenting everything. Make sure he looks controlling with money. That helps in court. Don't let him know about the savings until after papers are filed. My wife hadn't just been planning to leave me. She'd been strategically setting me up to look like the bad guy while positioning herself as the victim. Every fight about money, every accusation of me being controlling or petty, every instance where she'd made me feel guilty for questioning expenses. It had all been part of a calculated plan. She'd been playing chess while I'd been playing checkers. That evening, when she came home with takeout dinner and suggested we talk about making things more fair, I almost laughed out loud. She had no idea I knew about her secret accounts, her divorce lawyer, or her little planning committee. "Absolutely," I said, accepting the food with a smile. "I think fairness is exactly what we need." She smiled back, probably thinking she was managing the situation perfectly. If only she knew that fairness was about to become a two-way street. and I'd just learned how to drive in both directions. The next morning, I started implementing what I called Operation True Equality. If my wife wanted to play strategic games while claiming fairness, then she was about to get a masterclass in actual equality. First stop, my bank. I opened a separate checking account and had my paycheck redirected there. From now on, our joint account would only receive exactly 50% of my income, to the penny. No more cushion, no more covering shortfalls, no more emergency fund contributions from my side. I made a spreadsheet. Every single household expense broken down to the exact dollar amount she'd be responsible for. Mortgage payment, utilities, groceries, insurance, property taxes, internet, streaming services. Everything split precisely in half. I even included a line item for household maintenance and repairs, calculated based on the average annual costs over the past 3 years. Her portion came to $2,847 per month, due on the 1st of every month. Late fees would apply after the 5th, just like any other bill. When she came home that Tuesday, I presented her with her copy of the spreadsheet and a payment schedule. "What's this?" she asked, scanning the document. "Your 50%, I said cheerfully. "Exactly what you asked for. True equality." She studied the numbers, and I watched her face change as she realized what this meant. "This includes things like repair costs and maintenance." "Of course it does. Those are household expenses. In a true 50-50 partnership, both partners contribute to all costs, not just the convenient ones. But what if we don't have any repairs some months? Then you'll have money left over. What if we have major repairs? Then you'll pay your half. That's how partnerships work." She set the paper down slowly. "This seems a bit extreme, doesn't it? Because this is literally what you've been demanding for 3 years. I'm just making it official." Over the next week, I implemented the rest of my plan. I stopped doing any household tasks that weren't explicitly mine, according to our original chore chart. When she left dishes in the sink, I left them there. When her laundry piled up, it stayed piled. When she ran out of her fancy coffee, she had to buy more herself. The real test came when our garbage disposal stopped working. "The garbage disposal is broken," she announced Friday evening. "Okay," I said, not looking up from my book. She waited a moment. "Aren't you going to fix it?" "Why would I fix it?" Because you always fix things." I used to fix things because I was covering expenses beyond my 50% share. Now we're operating on true equality. The repair cost will be split 50-50, and so will the labor. You can either do half the work, or we can hire someone and split that cost too. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "You want me to help fix a garbage disposal?" "I want you to participate equally in household maintenance. Isn't that what equality means?" Sunday morning brought another reality check. She came downstairs to find me eating breakfast. "There's no coffee," she said. "Your coffee ran out," I corrected. "My coffee is fine." "You didn't buy coffee." "I bought my coffee." "You buy your coffee." "We agreed to split groceries 50-50, remember? That means we each buy our own preferred items." She opened the refrigerator, looking increasingly frustrated. "Half this food is gone." "My half," I said. "I ate my portions. Your portions are still there." This was when the reality of true 50-50 started hitting her. For 3 years she'd benefited from my tendency to over-contribute. I'd buy enough groceries for both of us, cook enough food for both of us, handle maintenance for both of us. I'd been subsidizing her lifestyle while she hoarded money and planned her exit strategy. Now she was getting exactly what she'd asked for, pure mathematical equality. By Wednesday, she was clearly struggling. I watched her standing in front of the broken garbage disposal with a wrench in her hand, having no idea how to even begin. She'd been forced to buy her own groceries, manage her own laundry schedule, and handle her own household responsibilities without my automatic backup support. The breaking point came Thursday evening. Our internet bill arrived, and according to our 50-50 agreement, her half was due immediately. "I don't have the money right now," she said, not meeting my eyes. This was interesting. According to her bank account, she had plenty of money. She just didn't want to spend it. "That's unfortunate," I said. "According to our agreement, late fees apply after 5 days. You're seriously going to charge me late fees?" "I'm going to treat this like any other business relationship. You want equality? This is what equality looks like. Bills get paid on time or there are consequences." She was getting desperate now, and I could see her cycling through her usual manipulation tactics. But I was prepared for this. "This isn't how marriages are supposed to work," she tried. "You're right," I agreed. Marriages are supposed to work on partnership and mutual support. But you decided you wanted a business arrangement with precise financial splits. I'm just giving you what you asked for. I never asked for this. You asked for 50-50 everything. This is 50-50 everything. By Friday, she was furious. But more importantly, she was starting to realize that the game she'd been playing had serious consequences. All those expenses she'd avoided by claiming poverty were now mandatory. All those household tasks she'd delegated to me through manipulation were now her responsibility. That weekend, I implemented the final phase. I'd been documenting everything, every conversation, every expense, every manipulation attempt. I'd also been consulting with my own lawyer, learning about divorce law and asset protection. If she wanted to play strategic games while planning our divorce, she was about to discover that I could play that game too. And unlike her, I wasn't going to hide my strategy behind fake declarations of love and fairness. I was going to beat her at her own game, using the rules she'd insisted we follow. True equality was about to get very educational for both of us. 3 weeks into my true equality experiment, I decided it was time for the grand finale. I'd gathered enough evidence to fill a filing cabinet, and my wife was clearly cracking under the pressure of actual 50-50 responsibility. More importantly, I'd confirmed through my own lawyer that her little divorce strategy wasn't going to work out the way she'd planned. Saturday morning, I made a phone call that would change everything. Mom, it's me. I want to invite everyone over for dinner next weekend, including her parents. I have some important news to share about our marriage. My mother-in-law loved family gatherings, especially ones where she could show off her daughter's perfect marriage. This was going to be educational for everyone involved. I spent the week preparing, not just the dinner, but a presentation that would make a corporate executive proud. Charts, graphs, bank statements, screenshots of messages, and a timeline that told the complete story of our financial relationship. The night before the dinner, my wife was noticeably nervous. "What's this big announcement about?" she asked for the third time. "You'll find out tomorrow. I think everyone will be very interested in what I have to share about our partnership." She didn't sleep well that night. I could tell because she kept tossing and turning, checking her phone, and getting up to pace around the house. Good. She should be nervous. Sunday evening arrived with perfect timing. Both sets of parents, her sister and brother-in-law, and my brother all gathered in our dining room for what they thought would be a celebration of some kind. Maybe a pregnancy announcement, maybe a promotion, maybe a big vacation we were planning. They had no idea what was coming. After dinner, I stood up with my folder of evidence and a projector I'd borrowed from work. "Thank you all for coming tonight. I wanted to share something important about our marriage that I think will interest everyone here." My wife's face went pale. She knew this wasn't going to be good. For the past 3 years, my wife has insisted on a 50-50 split of all household expenses. She's very passionate about equality and fairness in marriage. I clicked to my first slide showing our original agreement. I thought this was wonderful, progressive, modern. Her mother smiled approvingly. "It's so important for couples to be equal partners." "Absolutely," I agreed. Which is why I was so surprised to discover how our equality actually worked in practice. The next slide showed my expense tracking for the past year, gasps around the table as people saw the real numbers. As you can see, in our 50-50 arrangement, I've been contributing approximately 78% of our actual household costs. Her father leaned forward, studying the chart. "How is that possible?" "Great question." I clicked to the next slide. It turns out that 50-50 only applied to specific bills that my wife chose to include. Emergency repairs, maintenance, unexpected expenses, and household improvements mysteriously didn't qualify for equality. My wife tried to interrupt. "This is ridiculous. You can't just—" Firmly, I said, "Let me finish the presentation. I think everyone deserves to see the complete picture." The next slide showed her shopping expenses over the same period. Designer clothes, spa treatments, expensive dinners with friends, premium gym memberships, all while claiming she couldn't afford to split major household expenses. "But wait," I said, clicking to the financial revelation slide, "it gets better." The collective intake of breath when they saw her secret account balances was audible. Over $55,000 hidden away while I covered the majority of our expenses. Her brother-in-law whistled low. "Holy hell." "Language," his wife whispered, but she was staring at the numbers too. My wife stood up abruptly. "This is a private matter. You have no right—" "Sit down," I said, and something in my voice made her comply. "We're not finished." The next slide showed the payments to the divorce lawyer and screenshots from her freedom planning group chat. I'd printed out the relevant messages, including the ones about making me look controlling and hiding assets until after papers were filed. The silence in the room was deafening. Her mother's voice was barely a whisper. "You've been planning to divorce him?" "For 6 months," I confirmed, while simultaneously taking advantage of his generosity and building a legal case to portray him as financially controlling. My wife's father, a man who'd always prided himself on honesty and integrity, looked at his daughter with disgust. "Is this true?" She tried to rally, switching to victim mode. "You don't understand. He's been impossible to live with. All he cares about is money. He's been tracking every penny I spend like some kind of obsessive." "Because you've been stealing from him," my brother interrupted. "This isn't about money. This is about fraud." Her sister, who'd always been her biggest supporter, was studying the evidence with growing horror. "You made him pay for everything while you saved money to leave him? How could you do that?" And then I continued, clicking to my final slide. She had the audacity to suggest we needed to be more fair about expenses, all while consulting with lawyers about how to maximize her take in a divorce settlement. The room erupted in angry voices, everyone talking at once. Her parents were mortified. My parents were furious. Her siblings were asking how she could be so deceptive. I waited for the noise to die down before delivering my ultimatum. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, looking directly at my wife. "You have exactly one choice. You can transfer every penny of that hidden money into our joint account, fire your divorce lawyer, end your little planning committee, and commit to actual equality in this marriage, or you can pack your bags tonight and file for divorce tomorrow. You can't just..." "I absolutely can, because unlike you, I've been documenting everything legally and ethically. I have 3 years of evidence showing financial fraud, deception, and manipulation. Your cute little strategy to portray me as controlling? It just backfired spectacularly." Her mother was crying now. "How could you do this to such a good man? He's been supporting you while you plan to betray him." Her father added, his voice filled with shame. My wife looked around the room at the faces of everyone she cared about, all of them staring at her with disappointment and disgust. The perfect image she'd cultivated of herself as the progressive, independent woman was crumbling in real time. "You humiliated me," she whispered. "No," I said firmly, "you humiliated yourself. I just made sure everyone could see who you really are." The evening ended with her parents apologizing to me, her siblings expressing their shock and disappointment, and my family offering their full support for whatever I decided to do next. As everyone left, my wife sat alone at the dining room table, staring at the evidence of her own deception spread out in front of her. I said, beginning to pack up my presentation materials, "What's it going to be? Actual equality or 100% goodbye?" She didn't answer immediately, but I could see the calculations running behind her eyes. The game was over, and she knew it. Now she had to decide whether she wanted to try salvaging what was left of our marriage or face the consequences of the divorce she'd been planning, with a lot less leverage than she'd expected. She sat there for 20 minutes after everyone left, staring at the evidence of her own deception. I cleaned up the dining room, put away the projector, and waited. When she finally spoke, her voice was different, quieter, but not repentant. "You planned this whole thing," she said. "This was all calculated." "Yes, it was," I replied without hesitation. "Just like your divorce strategy was calculated. The difference is my plan was a response to yours." She stood up slowly, and I could see her trying one last manipulation tactic. The tears started right on schedule. I never meant for things to go this far. I was scared about our future, about money, about whether we were really compatible. The lawyer thing, it was just research. I wasn't actually going to file for divorce. "Research," I repeated. 6 months of research, including detailed strategies on how to maximize your settlement and make me look controlling. That's not what... Stop. I held up my hand. Just stop. We're way past the point where your lies are going to work on me. She tried a different approach. "Okay, maybe I made some mistakes. Maybe I was wrong about some things, but we can fix this. I'll transfer the money back. We can start over." "Start over?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You want to start over after 3 years of financial fraud and 6 months of planning my destruction?" "It wasn't fraud. It was my money. Money you accumulated by forcing me to cover expenses you should have split. Money you saved by manipulating me into subsidizing your lifestyle. Money you hoarded while claiming poverty." She was getting desperate now, cycling through every manipulation technique in her arsenal. "I love you," she said. "We can work through this. Couples therapy, counseling, whatever you want." "You know what's funny?" I said, pulling out my phone. 3 hours ago, you still thought you were going to destroy me in a divorce settlement. The only reason you want to work through this now is because your strategy exploded in your face." Her tears dried up quickly when she realized they weren't working. Now came the real her. "Fine," she snapped. "You want to throw away 3 years of marriage over money? Go ahead, but you're not going to get everything your way in a divorce either." "Actually," I said, opening a new folder I'd kept separate from the evening's presentation. "Let's talk about that." I spread out documents she'd never seen before: property deeds, financial statements, legal correspondence. "This house," I said, tapping the deed, "was inherited from my grandfather. It's been in my family for 60 years. Legally, it's separate property, not marital assets." Her face went white. "That's impossible. We've lived here for 3 years. Living somewhere doesn't create ownership rights. Your lawyer should have explained that before taking your money for 6 months." I continued laying out documents. "My retirement accounts were established before our marriage. Your contributions to household expenses, as we've documented extensively, were minimal. Your claim that you helped build our financial stability is going to be difficult to prove when the evidence shows the opposite. You can't do this." "I'm not doing anything except presenting facts. The same facts you'll face in divorce court, except now they're organized and documented instead of scattered across 3 years of financial records." She grabbed her phone frantically. "I'm calling my lawyer." "Go ahead. But I should mention that I've already spoken with mine. Turns out attempting to defraud a spouse during marriage proceedings is frowned upon by judges, especially when there's documented evidence of deliberate deception and hidden assets." She stared at me as the reality of her situation sank in. "You've been planning this whole thing." "No," I corrected. "I've been responding to your plans. There's a difference. If you'd been honest about money from the beginning, none of this would have happened. If you'd actually wanted equality instead of using it as a weapon, we could have built something real." "So what now?" she asked. "You're just going to divorce me and take everything?" "I'm not taking anything that was ever yours. But I'm done giving you things that were never yours to begin with." She tried one final desperate play. "People will think you're terrible, divorcing your wife over money troubles." "Money troubles?" I almost laughed. "You have over $50,000 in hidden accounts. The only money trouble here is your inability to spend your own money honestly. Everyone will know what you did tonight, how you humiliated me in front of our families. Everyone will know what you did for 3 years, how you manipulated and defrauded someone who trusted you. I think most people can figure out who the real villain is in this story." She was out of moves, and she knew it. The tears came back, but these were different. These were tears of genuine panic as she realized she'd lost everything she'd been planning to gain. "I don't want a divorce," she whispered. "Too bad," I said, starting to pack up the documents. "Because I do. We could make it work. Real 50-50 this time. I'll be better. You'll be better until you figure out a new angle to work. No thanks. I'm done being your financial safety net while you plot my destruction." The next morning, I filed for divorce. My lawyer, armed with 3 years of evidence and documentation of her deception, estimated the proceedings would be swift and decisive. She tried calling her parents, looking for sympathy and support. They wouldn't take her calls. Her sister finally answered and told her that her behavior had been disgusting and she needed to figure out her own problems. Within 2 weeks, she'd moved out of my house and into a small apartment across town. Her secret savings account would cover her expenses for a while, but without my subsidization of her lifestyle, $55,000 wouldn't last nearly as long as she'd planned. 6 months later, the divorce was finalized. She kept her hidden money and her car. I kept the house, my retirement accounts, and my dignity. Her lawyer bill ended up costing her almost $15,000 for advice that proved to be worthless. My legal costs were minimal thanks to her documented fraud, making the case straightforward. The final irony came a year later when I ran into one of her friends at the grocery store. Apparently, my ex-wife had tried the same 50-50 manipulation with her new boyfriend. He'd lasted about 3 months before figuring out the game and walking away. Some people never learn. As for me, I learned that equality in a relationship only works when both people actually believe in it. Real partnership requires honesty, mutual respect, and genuine commitment to shared goals. My ex-wife wanted the benefits of equality without the responsibilities. She wanted the advantages of partnership without the integrity. She demanded 50-50 everything but gave zero effort. So, I gave her exactly what she'd been planning to give me all along, 100% goodbye. And honestly, best decision I ever made. Our story has come to an end. If you've made it this far, how about subscribing to our channel? It helps us immensely. I've selected 2 other videos for you that I'm sure you'll enjoy. Feel free to click on them. I'll be waiting for you in the next story. See you soon.